Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, everybody. It's 1 p.m. 1 p.m. on a Wednesday. Beautiful weather today here in St. Louis. Is the weather beautiful where you are?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice September weather.
Mm-hmm. I looked at the calendar. We have about a month until the first frost date. So I wonder if that's going to come on time this year.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. I don't know. I'm waiting on my parts guy to fix a ridge vent. Okay, well, we have some folks joining us here, and I am so grateful that you're here with us today. This is our first session of the Lincoln University Small Farm Conference for 2022. We have, my name is Miranda Dushak. I work for Lincoln University Cooperative Extension. My job title is Small Farm Specialist, and I work here in the St. Louis region with the Small Farm Program. And I am delighted to have you here to kick off the 2022 Lincoln University Small Farm Conference. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So today we're going to start with horticulture is our first topic. The way the day is going to flow, we have an hour and a half together, is Dr. Eaton is going to speak about her production of Brussels sprouts, followed by Emily Wright and her experience as a grower, then followed by Dr. Clement Akotse-Mensah, and he'll be talking about elderberry production. So each presenter has 20 minutes with 10 minutes for Q&A at the end. We ask that you hold your questions until the end, but you can put them in the chat, okay? If you have anything that's coming up and you want to make sure you get it down. So I think that's a bit of our housekeeping. I would like to thank our other committee members here. In addition to our speakers, we have Dr. Fisher and Dr. Salinas on here with us as well. Okay, so Dr. Eaton, how are you feeling today?
I am feeling great. Thank you very much for inviting me to do this presentation and share the funding of this experiment with our fellow farmers and our fellow scientists. Thank you. Shall I just present? Hi, everybody. My name is Turia Eaton, and I am Associate Professor of Horticulture and State Horticulture Specialist here at Lincoln University of Missouri. This is an experiment that we did in 2019, 2020. It was funded by Missouri Department of Agriculture. And when we did get some data, I shared this data with some of our innovative farmers. One of them is here today, Ms. Emily Wright. And we just want her to apply some of the things that we did here in her farm and see what works and what did not work for her. So this is a really good opportunity to see a semi-academic presentation, because I just wanted to share with you some of the data, although it is simplified enough. And then our farmer is going to go and talk about also her experience with Brussels sprouts and also with other cole crops, and she will talk about the farming aspect of Brussels sprouts. So why Brussels sprouts? Brussels sprout has increased in popularity in the recent years, especially with this renaissance in the food movement. People started to really want to eat well, and and people have been paying attention to nutrition while eating, not just that it tastes good or it's filling my stomach, but they pay attention to what are the nutrients that I am getting, is this nutritious or not, and stuff like that. So Brussels sprout, among brassica, Brussels sprout really is a very, very rich in some components called glucosinolates. The scientific name is this isothiocyanate. And this component has cancer-defeating properties. And most of brassica, actually, they have these components on them, which make the consumption of brassica is really good. And it is very rich in minerals. It's like 1 cup of Brussels sprout will give you more than 100% of your daily value in vitamin C, and it will give you double the what you need in vitamin K. So some of the challenges in Brussels sprouts is it is labor intensive, because you have to grow the Brussels sprouts and then you have to take the buds, and that takes time, and then sell the buds. But recently, people started to sell Brussels sprouts right on the stalk, which really reduces that labor cost. And it is just that when you want to grow it on the stalk, you need to pay attention to the fact that the stalk is really, that looks good. To sell on the stalk, your stalk has to be 22 inches so that it fits in the commercial boxes. And also you need your Brussels sprouts to look relatively nice, relatively pretty, and empty from the spots and diseases and stuff. And see how the stalk looks really pretty, because you see the Brussels sprouts go into that spiral, and it looks really very nice. From the marketing point of view, when you want to grow Brussels sprouts, you want to make sure that your buds are big. So the consumers, this is the consumer survey. This is what it indicates. It indicates that the consumers, they will go for big Brussels sprouts, for big buds. They like, if you are selling on the stock, they would like the buds to be relatively uniform. They like them to be dense, which means that if you squish them, they are not very squishable. They like them to be hard, and they like to have the buds to be relatively free of diseases. This is the experiment, how it was laid off. And the objective of the experiment was to evaluate 8 varieties of Brussels sprouts and 5 planting dates for yield, for quality, and we also assessed the mineral nutrient concentration, the phenolics, and the glucosinolates concentration. Why we are evaluating these varieties? Because they are the ones that are in the markets. So we took some of the ones that are in the markets, and that are some of the farmers are actually growing these varieties. And why we evaluated the planting date? It's because Missouri, the weather of Missouri is a little bit challenging for Brussels sprout. Brussels sprout is a cold crop. It likes the weather to be a little bit cold. And also Missouri is challenged with the frost season. So that's why we found that evaluating planting date and telling people the dates that work and the date that doesn't work, at least in an experimental setting, might be valuable for the farmers and for our fellow scientists. So the varieties that we evaluated are Diablo, Dimitri Franklin Hestia, Jade Cross, Long Island Improved, Notek, and Rudnorf. Rudnorf is the only heirloom variety among all these varieties. All the other ones, they are modern varieties. And the planting dates that we evaluated are May 1st, May 15, June 1st, June 15, July 1st. And May 1st that year was 10 days after the last frost. So this is May 15 is 15 days after the date of the last frost, and so on and so forth. As you see here, some of the varieties of Brussels sprout, they lodge a little bit. Some of them, they grow straight. And those are also some information that was valuable for us. So once once the Brussels sprout, the buds have developed and they got relatively to maturity, for every date was harvested when the Brussels sprouts were ready to be harvested. We took all the leaves out. And then after that, we cleaned all the stalk right at the field. And then after that, we harvested the whole stalk. We cut the stalk and we put it in a bag with the label and with everything. And then we took them to the laboratory. So at the laboratory, we took the data. So here are some of the stalks. See how some varieties, they have a lot of space between one bud and the other, and some varieties, they have one bud next to the other. So that will give you an idea about if you wanna market them on stalks or if you wanna market them loose. So obviously this variety in here, it has one next to the other. It will be a candidate for marketing them on stock. This one also, but for like this one, they are far from each other. And then the consumer probably would not like to buy it as a stock like that. But then you take them, if that is the situation, you take them out of the stock and then you sell them. The Brussels sprouts, they are very prone to diseases, and it will be a good idea to really pay very good attention to them so that when you harvest them, they are relatively free of diseases. So in terms of data collection, we took the stock height, and that is mainly for people that are gonna market their Brussels sprouts on the stock. We took the bud density, we took the bud number and the height of the stock. That will, by dividing the number of the bud by the height, we get to the bud density. We took the bud size with the caliper. We actually saw how many inches diameter the bud is. And when we took this information, we took all the buds out of the stock, and then we took them together. And then we took the weight to see how much we have. So in terms of stock height, when we evaluated the varieties, you see here that Nautic and Rudnorf, they are the tallest varieties. I mentioned here Jade stock. I want to show you that it is one of the shortest varieties that we grow, but I wanted to mention it to you in here because it will be relevant at in the next slides of the presentation. So Nautic and Rudnorf are tall, and Jade Cross, Long Island also, we are gonna talk about it too, and these are very short varieties. In terms of the effect of plant date, the graph is not really very clear because all the varieties are there. But in most of the varieties, as we go from May 1 to June 30th, the length of the stock become smaller. And we went from even the varieties that are usually taller, they started to be shorter. In the term of number of marketable buds per stock, so again, the marketable buds are the buds that are big. They are between 0.75 to 2 inches. And they are the buds that are dense. If you squish them and they are squishable, they are not marketable. And they are also relatively free of diseases. So when we took the number of marketable buds per stock, we found that Jade Cross has really the highest. And the next one that comes, Dimitri, there is really very big, large difference between the next one in line and Jade Cross. Jade Cross gets about 20 in average. Some of them have more, some of them have less, 20 buds per stock, and they are marketable buds. They are big, they are dense, and they are relatively free of diseases. When we saw the effect of planting date, on the number of marketable buds per stock. As you see here, again, a Jade Cross is this one in here. But for all the varieties, see what is the difference between Jade Cross and the other varieties. But then for most of them, as you go from May 1st to June 30th, the number of marketable buds per stock decreases, and decreases actually dramatically. For the next slide, we have the bud diameter, and this is very important, especially for the ones that sell the buds loose. Again, the Jade Cross has the highest bud diameter among the varieties. The Long Island has the smallest buds. But we will see that Long Island had different interests later on. But in terms of marketability, Jade Cross gave us the highest height of the stock and the highest bud number of bud that are marketable. The scale here is millimeter. So here, like in average, it's about 24, 25 millimeters. When we see the effect of planting date on the number, on the bud diameter, again, you see that Diablo in here has the highest bud diameter. It has really very large buds. And the second one here is Rude North, and Jade Cross is not in here because the planting date has no effect on the bud diameter for Jade Cross. So that was actually very good for people that want flexibility. But if you want to have big buds, you need to go with Diablo, or you need to go with Rude North, or with Dimitri. But most of them, when you go with the planting date, the bud diameter decreases as you get down to June 30th. When we took all the buds out of the plant, and we took the weight of plants marketable buds as a whole, we found again that Jade Cross has the highest weight, and it is followed by Dimitri, but there is a very big scale in between them. So Long Island has the lowest yield among all of them. In the effect of planting date, here is a Jade Cross, and the ones that you don't see in here, that means that planting date had no effect on the yield of the plant. But for most of them, when you go from May 1st to June 30th, the weight of plants marketable buds decreases, which means that the yield decreases with planting date. In Dimitri, it started again to go up in June 15, but then if you go any further than that, then the plants will die in the field with the frost, and you would not be able to collect your crop. So now this is a very busy table, but I highlighted what we need really to see. This is the variations among the varieties that we studied in this experiment in terms of macronutrients. So the macronutrients are nitrogen, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, calcium, and sulfur. So when you see, here are all the varieties, and here are all the macronutrients, Jade Cross is in the upper side of the table. and Dimitri and Franklin, they are in the lower side, that it is always represented. It is the highest when it comes to, it is the second in terms of nitrogen. It is the first in terms of phosphorus. It is the second in terms of magnesium. It is the first in terms of potassium. And it is the third in terms of calcium. And it is a little bit low in terms of sulfur. But then when you see Long Island, I told you we are gonna talk to it. Long Island is represented a lot, which means that it is a very nutritious variety. So the yield is not a lot of yield, but it is very nutritious. So if you eat one of Long Island, it's like you have eaten 3 of the Jade Cross or the other ones. So that's why it is interesting to test for the nutrient concentration, because many times, I remember one time I had this, I attended a seminar when I was in grad school at the University of Massachusetts. And somebody came to give a presentation on nutrient concentration, and he brought with him this gigantic carrots. And all those carrots, they were so gigantic. And he said, he said, you see this big carrots? And we say, yeah, they look beautiful. He said, you have to eat 12 of these carrots to meet the nutritional content of this tiny little carrot. And he showed us this shriveled little carrot that was purple. At that time, purple carrots were not in the market. You did not see many colors, you know, and it was very small. And it was, so he said, if you eat only one of this, it's like you ate 12 of this big carrot. Who is gonna eat 12 carrots? See, that is the problem of today's nutrition, is that you need really to eat a lot of vegetables to meet the nutritional need of the body. And that's why it is good to go back into research and try to find how we can increase the nutrient concentration in the fruit and vegetables. So when we looked at the micronutrients, and the micronutrients, they are needed by the body in a very small quantity. However, they are still needed. And yeah, I got the signal, Miranda, thank you. The mineral nutrients are the boron, the iron, the manganese, the copper, and the zinc. With Jade Cross is really low in micronutrients, so it is not really something that is very rich in micronutrients. So you need really to have a good serving of it. But again, when you see Long Island, that does not produce much, it is really very rich in micronutrients. It is first in most of the, when we looked at the glycogenolate and in phenolic content, we found that a Jade Cross is among the first, because there is no statistical difference between this 4 in here, and also in terms of phenolics and in terms of total glycogenolates. So it is a good source of phenolics and glycogenolate. Long Island, on the other hand, it is low on the list. So in conclusion, for Missouri, Jade Cross is recommended for production in Missouri, but you saw, like Dimitri also is a very good candidate. Long Island has a very low yield, but it is very nutritious. If you want to market it, you can market it as nutrient-dense crop. May 1st or 10 days after the last frost is recommended for planting Brussels sprouts in Missouri. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you. You are muted, Miranda.
Oh, wow. See, that's great. We can unmute the team, Andrew, please. I thought that was really interesting, Dr. Eaton. Thank you so much. Do people have questions for Dr. Toria? I asked one in the chat, but if anyone else, go first if you want to kick off a little 10-minute Q&A.
I have a question. This is Jennifer Davis. I'm from St. Louis, and I love Brussels sprouts. But when I think about it, when I go to the farmer's market or even to the grocery store, they don't have, I don't see a name of what they are. So how would I know what I'm getting?
Yeah, that is true. Well, yeah, same for all the other vegetables. People do not, but this is mainly for people that want to grow. Brussels. It will be really good to put the varieties there, but most people really do not know. But we recommend that like for farmers markets, like for somebody that want to grow Long Island, to market it as nutrient dense crop. And we would like the farmers to start paying attention to the nutrient dense vegetables really. And but for the farmers, when you want to grow, there is a whole there are so many varieties of Brussels sprouts out there. So I would like to pay attention to the varieties that we can actually grow here in Missouri to start with altogether, and then to pay attention to the ones that grow best. And then to the ones that have good nutrition, but as you said, they do not put the varieties there. Because the consumer, they just want to look at the Brussels sprout, the one that are big, the buds that are big, that are firm, and that are free of diseases. Those are the components of marketing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you have a couple in the chat here, Dr. Eaton. Rapid fire from Jake Smith out of St. Louis. Hey, Jake, glad you're on. He asks, which type of mulch were used, and was there a noticeable difference in plant health between the mulches?
We did not assess the mulches. We just had plastic mulch, and the beds, they were 4-inch wide, and we planted on two sides on the inches. And the plants in our experiment, they were actually 2 feet apart. What is recommended for Brussels sprout is 1.5 feet, but we had 2 feet apart. Brussels sprout is a very large plant, and I recommend, if possible, for people to put really very big distance between one plant and the other. It is because they are very large plants. The air condenses within the plant, and then that causes diseases. So to prevent diseases, I recommend that people, if they can, I know that not all the farmers will afford to have this large spacing, but it will reduce the disease. It will reduce diseases among plants, and as the plants start to grow, if they can take the lower leaves out, and that also will give some aeration to the plants, and it will reduce this air condensation among the plants.
Okay, great. So Dan and Emily asked the same question, essentially. How many days to harvest to get the 22 inches?
Oh, that is actually good. Red Cross is 90 days. Jade Cross is 90 days, but there are some varieties that are 120 days. So they vary, but when you buy the seeds, it is written on the package how many days to harvest. But you have to put some time into the starting seeds. When you start them in the greenhouse, it takes about from 3 to 4 weeks for the plant to start. And I recommend people, of course, starting Brussels sprouts from transplants. That will really reduce the death of the plant, and it will give you also a head start, because it is very good to start right after the last frost. So you need to have your plants ready, and then you have that head start for the season.
Okay, and Dan asks, have you grown in high tunnel, or at least start them in the high tunnel? I think you spoke to that a little bit, how you start them.
We started them in the greenhouse.
Yes. At what day? What day did you see?
4 weeks before transplanting.
And you were doing the May 1st transplant.
For May 1st, but we planted them according to the planting date, because we had 5 planting dates. So For every planting date, we planted them 4 weeks ahead of time. For people that do not have a greenhouse, high tunnel will be second choice. We did try Brussels sprouts in high tunnel, and it just did not work at all. Because, you know, Brussels sprout, they are cold crop. They really like cold weather. Even when you plant them in the field during the hot months, you see sometimes you get scared because you see that your plants they look kind of wilted, but then they go back up. So that is not really a problem. They do need to be irrigated regularly, especially that they are very big plants. And Brussels sprout do not like nitrogen. So you pre-plant nitrogen, and you do a side dress if you can, or drip irrigation during the first month of planting, and then you hold down on the nitrogen, because when you have too much nitrogen, it will actually encourage leaf growth. And the Brussels sprouts, they are buds. See, they are buds, they are not leaves. So you need to hold down on the nitrogen, and you need large spacing, and you need regular irrigation, especially during the hot months.
Okay, great. We have one more question. Dan said, oh, so that's why mine failed. Thank you. We have another question. I think this will probably be our last question, but you know, I'd get a hold of Dr. Eaton. She'll give you her contact info as she finishes. Jake's question says, do you recommend using row cover after transplanting?
Row cover, well, it is a very large plant. Row cover, we extension educator, we always recommend row covers, because they are wonderful for pest, for insect management. They are just great. They are like the greatest in insect management, and they give you a head start in the beginning, because they warm up the bed, and you can also again use them at the end of the season. But during the season, the plants cannot handle the row cover because of the heat. Because row covers, they also make this microclimate that is also much heated than the surrounding. So, but if you want to start earlier, the row cover will protect the plants from the frost. So if you wanna plant even earlier than May 1st, which can be a really good idea, you can use a row cover and plant even earlier than that.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Can you tell us how to get a hold of you? Put your contact in the chat.
Yeah, I have this in my first, I will put it on the chat. How about that? Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, can we give it up for Dr. Toria Eaton?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Now we are going to move on to Ms. Emily Wright. Emily, thank you so much for being here. It's a beautiful September day. I know it's hard for a farmer to take some time out, but we so appreciate you sharing your knowledge to the group. Emily is in Ashland, Missouri. Her farm is called Three Creeks Farms and Forest, and she's going to talk about her place and her production and things pertaining to horticulture. So Emily, why don't you introduce yourself and take it away?
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. And thanks to Dr. Eaton for collaborating with farmers on some of this research. I'm going to speak a little bit to the Brussels sprouts project in particular, and then more generally about the role that brassicas have on our market garden / vegetable farm. We have about an acre of vegetables in production in the Missouri River Hills. We're just a couple valleys in from the Big Muddy, and this is our 8th season growing. We are a little unique as a diversified farm because we don't do farmers markets or anything like that. We are primarily taking all of our stuff to chefs and restaurants and specialty grocery stores in the Columbia area. So all of every present is in the context of kind of wholesale model and not so much retail, but it you can easily extrapolate to what it might mean for your market booth or your CSA or that type of thing. So yeah, we have 1 acre in production of vegetables. We also do about a ½ acre of flowers, cut flowers and herbs, and we do mushrooms in the forest, and we do some foraging as well, wild foraging. But I'll get started here. Let's see if my screen will switch. 1 sec. Well, my screen seems to be stuck on the current slide.
Oh, rats. Hey, Andrew.
Oh.
Mr. Andrew, are you on?
I think I got it now.
Oh,
Do you see
Yeah,
my
it
second
changed
slide?
now. It went to
Okay,
the
sorry about
second
that.
slide.
okay, great. We're good to go?
Great. So we collaborated on the Brussels sprouts research with Lincoln. Sorry, excuse me. We did specifically the Jade Cross variety. And it was really nice to be able to try it because it wasn't something that was part of our regular crop rotation. Brussels sprouts are a vegetable, but we tend to stay away from crops that have a super long days to maturity, just because with our intensive production system, we tend to focus on things that have a quicker turnaround. And we're also limited. So we're primarily limited in space and labor. So we tend to focus on quicker crops, but we wanted to give these a try. And we actually did 2 different plantings. We got a little bit of a late start in the spring, and we didn't have the seeds in the greenhouse until April 17th. So we started the spring crop on April 17th in the greenhouse, transplanted out in May, which meant for Jade Cross, which is supposed to be a 90-day variety, they would be maturing sometime in peak summer on our farm. And it was a struggle for the spring crop. So I'm going to start with the bad news first. So this was our spring crop of Jade Cross. You can see that some of the plants have Brussels sprouts, others don't have any at all. And there was a lot of variability in size and maturity. And these were all in, receiving uniform irrigation and treatment. We did spray BT for cabbage moths and caterpillars, but only it was less than 20% of the plants had any sizable Brussels sprouts at all. And the ones that we did get, they were very pungent, or I guess bitter. It wasn't really marketable for us and our customers. So we said, let's try again. Let's do a fall planting. So fall, much better. So these were started with our regular fall brassicas in early to mid-July, transplanted out in early August, and grown until around November is when we started seeing harvestable yields. And they were delicious. They were on the small side, so about 1 inch on average. And you can see the Jade Cross here, they're really packed in tight on there. And this picture doesn't have the full stalk, but the stalks are pretty short. So they're really compact, sort of dense and quick growing. And that was all really great for us. I think the most appealing thing about the Brussels sprouts in our operation is that they fit into this shoulder season really late, where we don't have a lot of other things available. So we were harvesting these from like right around Thanksgiving into December. They held up in multiple frosts and freezes and just got sweeter. And so that was nice, because typically there aren't a lot of things other than storage crops available during that time of the year. So that was, oh yeah, here's all the information. Jade Cross seeded in July. We were getting about ½ pound per plant when we were harvesting. So at a wholesale price, we do charge a little bit of a premium for our stuff because it's a lot of specialty crops. But on the upper end, we would feel like probably $4 to $5 would be the upper limit per pound. So on average, maybe $2 to $3 a plant for these in the field. And I'm going to contrast that with how we do our kale operation here. So kale, we call it one of our sort of foundation or cornerstone crops. We've been growing this since our very first year, and we have demand for it that, we in the 8 years, it doesn't really, even no matter how many we plant in the field, we seem to not be able to meet the demand locally. So we specifically grow winter-bore green curly kale, and we might have a few other plantings of a lacinato or a hydra, which is sort of a serrated leaf. But for the most part, this is our go-to standard. And these we start in mid-February in a 264 or a 338 seedling tray. They get bumped to 50s in March. And then they're transplanted in April. And, a lot of farmers might rush to say, oh, well, I can get these out a month before the first frost into the field. But we don't take that approach, because if you plant them out in March in the field, they can go out there. You could get a cold snap that will wipe them out, because they aren't, they're not immune to super cold temperatures. But the thing that they're going to do in the field in March, if you put them out, they're just going to sit there. They're not going to grow. They're going to wait for a little more sunshine and a little more warmth. And so I baby them in the greenhouse until April. And then this is kind of our production system. We have developed these systems over the years where they're standardized, we stick to them, we build them into our crop plan. And we've condensed our kale plantings over the years. So we're doing them 12 inches apart in row, 2 rows on a 30-inch bed. This year we did 1,000 plants. And so far from those 1,000 plants, we've harvested 1,250 pounds of kale. And we keep our kale planting going all the way through the season. So we start harvesting in May, the harvest climbs June, July. We usually see a lull in August, and that's for a variety of reasons. One, the plants are sad because it's been, especially this season, 95 degrees for 8 weeks straight. They're, being subjected to insect pressure. So there's not as much marketable yield off of them. Even though they're still growing, the leaves might be damaged from insects or disease. But as long as you sort of keep up with those older leaves and keep the plants cleaned up and remove those leaves from the field and get on a regular schedule of pest management, the plants will survive the summer, and then they'll start ramping up again in September. So you can see we've done 4 out of our 9 delivery dates for September, and we're already almost at our August sales. And, we would expect that to double for the rest of the month. And then we have all of October and until it gets cold enough that they are basically stop growing. Oh, sorry. So $5,500 off of these 1,000 plants year to date, and we're projecting about 7,000. So $7 per kale plant in this 2,000 square foot area. That's a really good number for us. And we are willing to invest the labor and the time and the space in this to kind of build it into our system as a foundation crop where we know we can count on that income. And that allows for us to experiment with some other things on the farm and do research and try out new things with sort of kale as that cornerstone crop. So kale is our top brassica crop in terms of revenue on our farm. And this is going to primarily in bulk, 3-pound bulk bags to restaurants, but we do also bunch kale for grocery stores. And those are, usually 1/3 to 1/2 pound bunch in a case of 12 or 18. But that represents a pretty small portion of the total kale sales. They are primarily bulk bagged to restaurants. So our second largest revenue brassica on the crop, and I'm lumping these together, would be baby greens that are used for salad mixes, primarily mustard greens and arugula. And we've developed this mustard mix that you kind of see in the image here, specifically for, it's very intentional. So you'll see that those are like the frilly serrated mustards, and that is because you can grow these out, and even if they get covered in flea beetles, they still look pretty good. You don't see the damage like you would on a big, flat, smooth leaf. And so they hide that well, and they're still loved by the chefs, even if they get a little damaged. So our system for these, let me check my time here real quick. Okay, our system for these is we direct seed using a 3-row jang, and we do 1 pass on a 30-inch bed. We used to do double passes, and we've learned that, especially if you want to grow these through the summer, which you completely can in Missouri, they like to be able to breathe. So we try to give them a little bit of space so that disease doesn't become a problem. And for those jang growers out there, we always use an X24 roller for our baby brassica greens. The big difference between these and, say, a kale or a Brussels sprout is that the days to maturity are super short. They don't lie when they say that it's 21 days on the seed packet. We are typically harvesting from the day of seeding at 25 days. And so each row in that bed would yield 10 to 15 pounds. So on average, we get about 40 pounds of fresh baby greens off of 1 pass of the jang. It takes, once the bed is prepped, it takes about 30 seconds to seed this bed, and it's a pretty quick harvest too. So off of that, we're getting about $280 for a 100-foot bed. We look at our kale and we say, okay, well, we're projecting $1,400 on a 100-foot bed for kale, but you have to remember those days to maturity. The kale is going to be in that bed for 7 months. This is going to be in the bed for a single month, and then it's going to be available for planting something else, or for harvest, or for a cover crop, or whatever in the rotation. So that's a really sort of beneficial aspect in a market garden too, is being able to get a quick turnaround on a crop. And there's a lot of demand for these from our chef customers as well. Some of our other faves on this farm that I would have, if I had more time, I would go through all of these in our production system, but these are all brassicas that we love and that our chefs love as well. These are Japanese salad turnip. So common varieties would be a Hakurei or a Tokyo Cross. These are delicious. These are not a storage turnip. They're sweet. We've seen toddlers eat them like apples. The greens are delicious. They're not spiky. There are varieties of these that are violet and red as well. They're not quite as sweet or petite as these white salad turnips, but they are also delicious and quick growing. This is another one. Instead of a long-term storage turnip, you're looking at maybe 50 days to maturity, or you can harvest these as petite turnips at about 40 days. French breakfast radish is a favorite for around here. There's a new variety of these available that is purple and white. That's really beautiful. This one is a broccolini. So we don't grow. If you came here hoping to learn a lot about growing a big head of cauliflower or a big head of cabbage or broccoli, you can probably tell by now that that's not really our approach. But we do love these sprouting broccolis that are short days to maturity. They're delicious. And instead of investing all of your time and effort in getting one big head, these things grow exponentially all season long from spring into winter. And you harvest these little florets individually, and you can bundle them up for a retail sale or send them out bulk. The leaves themselves are delicious. The stalks are like candy on these and super tender. So we've done some trials of different varieties of these different broccolis, and we've settled on a couple of favorites around here. We do grow collards, and these seem to change, sort of ebb and flow in favor with customers. Sometimes we can't grow enough of them. Sometimes they sit in the field. We're not really sure what the trend is or what's driving that, but we usually do a spring and a fall approach to those. And then winter radishes are a great storage option. Hold on one second, I gotta plug in my computer. Somehow got unplugged. Okay,
And Emily, you're at your 5-minute warning.
okay, I saw your hand. Thank you.
Okay, you're doing great.
I tried to nod. So winter storage radishes, these would be things like different types of daikons, purple daikon, white daikon, watermelon radish, black Spanish radishes. These will sit in storage all winter long. They're beautiful when you slice them open. They're delicious, poached, cooked, and roasted. And so that's another favorite for us and our chefs. Yes, so it's 5 minutes of my presentation, and we still have the 10 for questions, right? Okay. So I just wanted to hit on, I know that everyone is familiar with the common brassica pests, like the cabbage loopers or the caterpillars and the flea beetles and probably aphids, but we have a few that have been particularly challenging in our years of growing. So I wanted to show pictures of what to look out for. And if you spot these, you should probably put your IPM plan in action. Harlequin bugs are a major one, particularly because they are a disease vector, and they don't do a ton of damage to the plants themselves, except for the disease that results from them spreading it. So if you see graying, wilting leaves and you see these bugs, you know that they are sort of rampant. This one has been active in Missouri this season, I know, is the blister beetle. These guys particularly love turnips, the winter radishes, and they'll roll through, in a huge horde and attack everything in sight. They also were on our chard this season. So that's a good one to keep an eye out for, because being proactive is really important with those. And then maybe a lesser known one is just this thing. It looks like a little housefly, which is the parent of the cabbage root maggots. So anything that we grow, all of our turnips that are subject to the gnawing of the larvae of this fly, we put row cover on, because that is the only thing that we've found that will prevent the damage that their maggots do, which is like a discoloration. They do holes, they do channels, they turn it brown. They make the roots look really ugly and not as marketable. So we keep an eye out for these, and ideally there's the day that turnip crop is seeded, the row cover goes on as well. And crop rotation is important too, because their larvae will be in the soil where your brassica crops were in previous years. So those were my topics. I say thank you again for inviting me to participate today. I love to be a resource for fellow farmers, and I love collaborating with folks who are doing real research as well. So thanks for having me.
Emily, that was great. My goodness, I've learned so much from you. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time, for being here and sharing with us. So did we have any questions here in the chat?
I don't see any yet.
We can open it up for a discussion here. You can unmute people. Andrew, let them unmute themselves if they want. Justin K asked.
It's open if people want to unmute.
Oh, okay. Well, Justin, it's good to see you on. Justin asks, do you plan on continuing with Brussels sprouts? Sorry.
I would love to. Like I said, we are very space limited, so it's hard for us to justify dedicating space to them based on the profitability and the days to maturity. If we had, you know, additional fields, which we in the future, they're definitely something I would work into our rotation because they are delicious, and there is something really unique about, you know, late fall fresh Brussels sprout. They're so nutty and sweet, and they are different from what you get at the grocery store. I see a question here more about marketing of our products. Sure. So, you know, in our early years, we actually did the Lincoln Farmers Market. I think that we got on the wholesale train because our very first season growing, we did 6 acres in the Missouri River bottomlands with an acre a piece of one crop. So we did an acre of watermelons, of sweet potatoes, black beans, and butternut squash. And so we started off our first year with 9,000 pounds of sweet potatoes. Well, our only option was to start going to grocery stores and restaurants and saying, how many of these can you possibly take? That's obviously not our model anymore, but we made a lot of connections that way. And then those years we were actually shipping stuff to St. Louis as well because we overwhelmed the mid-Missouri market. But that started a relationship with chefs. And then over the years, you know, we sit down with our chefs every winter and we talk to them about what's working, what's not working, what they would like to see, new things they would like to try. You know, we've kind of settled in on the main things that they have a demand for. And then, like I said, if we have our cornerstone crops, that allows us to experiment with things, and they're sort of along with us for that ride. And, you know, it happens that a chef will move from restaurant to restaurant locally. Well, they'll take our account with them, or somebody who is maybe a sous chef or a working in the kitchen will start their own operation and they'll become a new customer. And then we do a lot of marketing through social media, primarily Instagram. Just take a picture of something that's maybe the first harvest, and then the messages start coming in. You know, when can I get the broccolini, and how much of this do you have? And ooh, that looks beautiful. So there's sort of a visual side, and then sort of winter planning. And then we also, the way that the food gets distributed is twice a week we send out offering lists. So Sunday and Wednesday, we send out offering lists to our chefs. They order and we harvest on Monday and Thursday, and then we deliver on Tuesday and Friday. So it's twice a week cycle of fresh stuff going out. Leftover as forage for animals feeding. We don't have a lot of leftover. We tend to be a pretty lean operation, and most of our crop residue gets composted. We did have pastured pork as part of our farm for 3 years at our old location, and they would get some of our leftovers, but we don't. Our current farm, which we purchased 2 years ago, doesn't have, the landscape doesn't really allow for livestock, so we don't have livestock any longer.
Can I jump in with a question?
Yeah, hi Anna.
Hi Emily, good to see you. Great presentation. I am sort of a lazy gardener, and so we just eat wholly ugly kale from the garden, but your kale is always really good. Like if we can find Three Creeks kale, we always go for it because it's so sweet. But I'm curious for pest management. I mean, we always have cabbage moths, and I go in by hand and just take them off as much as I can. But do you think, is row cover a good sort of catch-all for a lot of the brassica pests, or is there anything else that you do to prep the bed to keep the kale healthy all season long?
Yeah, so we don't do row cover on our bigger, longer season brassicas, partially because humidity can sort of create an environment where diseases can spread pretty quickly, and I think Toria sort of alluded to that. It's really, you kind of have to be committed to a regular monitoring and management cycle. So, you know, we use all organic approved approaches, and the primary one would be BT, which is a bacteria that I feel like most people are familiar with. So, you know, in the height of summer, every 2 weeks, we have a battery powered backpack sprayer now, which is really nice. Really saves your shoulders from the pumping of the manual ones. And yeah, a mix of BT and just every 2 weeks applied is really helpful for the most part. And then for the other insects, you know, we will on occasion use something that's organic approved that would be pyrethrin based, or something for the harlequin bugs in particular. But I mean, one of the other approaches is just kind of resetting the plant. So if the whole thing's been ravaged and it's a leafy brassica that you're going to continue eating from, you know, just take all this stuff off and it grows from the center, and just let it bounce back. And it's going to look silly for a minute, and you know, but it will keep growing as long as you're, you know, giving it the nutrients it needs and the water and everything else. And I feel like you know, and in the meantime, the ecosystem can balance out, and some of the pests that might be thriving at one point in the season might sort of decline later in the season. But for the caterpillars, it really just takes pretty regular application of BT, I feel like, is the best approach.
Cool, thanks.
This is Justin K. I had a question. So for organic fertility management and a long-term crop like kale, can you talk a little bit about how you prep the beds and how you might supply nutrients otherwise?
Yeah, so we, you know, initially we do an application of certified organic compost for all of our early spring plantings. And then we have an injection system that we will occasionally do a kelp or seaweed based fertilizer, sometimes molasses. We have, you know, it's just something where we're using 3/4 inch irrigation line and hose fittings, and we can hook a siphon to a bucket up, and it sort of feeds into the system. And currently, you know, if you looked at our kale field right now, you would see we invested the labor in August to reset the crop and weed everything, and then we seeded cover crops at the base of the plant. So there's red clover and Austrian peas coming up sort of at the base of the plants right now. And we're hoping that those will also help us. We're going to try cutting the plants off this year instead of pulling them out of the ground. I'm hoping that those active cover crops will just help it break down. But yeah, for a long season, you're going to need something. We usually start to, you know, do the applications like later July, early August to get the plants to rebound for the fall.
Cool, thank you.
Well, great, Emily, my gracious, thank you so much for being here with us. We really, really appreciate it. Just get the new vendor packet into me.
I think I might be on record, but I'll do that.
We can look into that to see if you are already on record.
I
yes?
just want to say, if anyone has more questions, feel free to email me. I'll put our email in the chat.
Okay, sounds great. So last presentation of the day. Let's give it up for our in-house entomologist, our IPM integrated pest management extraordinaire, my immediate supervisor,
Oh, you.
Dr. Clement
It's Reda.
Akotin Mensah.
All right, thank you so much. Can you please see my Can you see my screen? All right, thank you. And can you hear me? Hello, wonderful. So my name is Clement Akotin-Mensah. I'm the state IPM specialist at Lincoln, and also the coordinator or the director for our small farm program. So today I'm going to talk about, a crop that many people don't see as very important in the state and, other places. But, in recent times, we are seeing a lot of, activities with this crop. So this study, I'm doing this work with Mr. Andrew Thomas, who is a researcher at the University of Missouri Southwest Research Center. So before I start, I want to acknowledge the sponsors of this research, Missouri Department of Ag, they giving us some money to do this research, and then North Central IPM Center in Minnesota, which is also giving us money, and then our big grant that we recently got from USDA, NEFA, supporting this work. And also the work will not be successful if I fail to acknowledge some of my students and then all the people that have been involved in this work. So I want to thank all of these guys for helping and this work. And then, of course, Missouri Elderberry Growers Association, they are also helping us, giving us the plots for us to do this work. So elderberry, many people call this the plant of the roadside. And the reason is that wherever that you drive around, you see this plant growing nicely, because it has very nice, flowers bloom. So, and, people really see them, growing unattended. The crop is abundant in the US, and it can grow as an annual. It can be it can be there for several years or maybe for just a few years. And as I said, if you look at the picture here, these are elderberry that are growing on the roadside, and this gentleman and the lady are picking it, the flowers. So, it's really interesting to see a crop or a plant that grows, on a roadside like this, but people really don't pay much attention. So this is how the plant is distributed in the US and Canada. So if you look at this map, it looks like elderberry is almost grown in fact, all the states have elderberry, which means that it has some importance. That's why it is growing in all these places. So just for our information. Now, the elderberry plant has a very nice, showy, flowers, like you see on the left picture, white flowers, very nice. And you might think that this is where a insect will really love to attend, to these flowers. But we've not been seeing that. I'll talk about that. So the berries are also nice. If you look on my right, the berries look, nice, attractive. And because of that, insects love to see colors. So they are always, able to be attracted to these, berries. Now, elderberry has a lot of benefits. When I went through literature, I found out that, it's able to reduce weight and boost our immune system. And one thing that I found so interesting was that it is able to reduce appearance of wrinkles and age spots. So it was kind of, wow, this is really great. If you eat that and you can reduce your wrinkles, then probably some of us that are growing old, we might want to be taking that. And it has a lot of other benefits, and it promotes bone strength, which means that it's a crop that really, if we pay attention to it, it will be beneficial to all of us in terms of our health. Now, I looked at some of the products that are on the market, and there are several of those, many products that, if we really pay attention, farmers or people who really want to do some business can do a lot of business from this. In fact, this one on my left here is about $27, which is huge. I mean, it's very, 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 very huge. So it has a lot of products that are on the market. People use it for different, health benefit. Now, recently we have been trying to really improve, elderberry production, and probably not me, but Andrew Thomas and the team in University of Missouri. A lot of work has been done on that. And when I got to Lincoln, I realized that, we still have to do more about, elderberry pest management, because it's a crop that, as I said, many people don't pay attention, and there are a lot of little studies have been conducted on this crop. And in Missouri, elderberry has become #1 berry crop. And currently we know that it is surpassing blackberries and strawberries, which means that it is almost the #1 crop that we have. Now, recently, Mr. Andrew Thomas, obtained some money from USDA, which is about $5.4 million, which I am part of that team. So we are trying to bring elderberry into mainstream production. And what that means is that because it grows on the roadsides, we are trying to bring it into production that people will have interest and be growing it. Even though people are growing it now, but we want it to be more, more of a crop that growers will like to grow, like blueberry, blackberry, apple, peaches, and even some of the vegetables. So that is what the goal of this. So this particular work has a lot of, areas that we are looking at. Some are looking into the health benefits, others are looking into equipment to harvest. My responsibility in this project is to look out for ways to be able to, develop IPM programs for the pests that we see in elderberry production. Now, like most crops, if you want to really be successful in most crops, like just now we've been told about, cold crops have a lot of insects. So for a very successful cropping and a very successful production for elderberry, we need to really develop IPM that will address many key pests that we are seeing in elderberry. And a major step in developing an IPM program is to identify all the key pests and then the natural enemies. So we want to find out what are the pests that we see on elderberry with, climate change going on. What are some of the new pests that are coming? A lot of invasive species are coming in. So we want to document some of those insects and then now be able to know what they do and how we can develop IPM for that. So this particular work that I've been involved with is to determine, the objective is to determine the presence and abundance of arthropod pests. Here I'm using arthropod because they are not only insects that I'm looking at other non-insect pests that can attack elderberry. And also some of the natural enemies, that is the good insect that we can find. And then that will help us ultimately, to be able to come out with, a list of insects and then find out a way of developing IPM for these insects. So I did some work, the past 2 years, we've been conducting work in elderberry, and we did this work in central Missouri, was here at Lincoln. We had an elderberry farm here, and then Southwest Research Center in Mount Vernon in Missouri. So that is where we did this work. So what I did was that, and to be able to find the insect, you have to really deploy traps. So we did deploy a lot of traps. So yellow sticky traps, stink bugs trap, bee traps, and several other traps that we think could really, attract or capture some of these insects. And apart from that too, we also did visual observation. We went to the field to visualize or observe some of the insects that are in the field. So I'm going to just show you some of the insects that we found and then how we can really deal with these insects. So these are the traps. The one on my up on my left, this is a Tracy dual trap for stink bugs. The middle one is for spotted ring Drosophila. We deployed some pitfall traps, And then the one in the middle here is blue vein trout for bees. Wanted to also know the diversity of the bees in the elderberry farm. We also used these traps that you see here. These are spotted wing Drosophila traps. We deploy these traps in several locations to monitor spotted wing Drosophila population. So the results, I'm just going to run through some of the results for us and then discuss that. So in all, so far, we have recorded over 80 insect species, and then 12 spiders and 3 pest mites. So these are the insects, and then the spiders and mites we have, we have recorded in the elderberry plant. And most of them, the most abundant ones that we have seen are elderberry borers, green and brown stingbugs, aphid, sawfly, Japanese and June beetles, Jesus bug, and tarnished plant bug, and several others. These are just examples of those that we have, and I've created a list of some of the insects. So the hemipterans are the true bugs. So we have green sting bugs, several species of that. So the hemipterans, we have 6 families, and 12 species. And most of them were abundant. Some of them we have not been able to know their pest status, whether they are pests or not. And for sting bugs, the major sting bugs that we found are brown sting bugs and green sting bugs. Most of these insects, they feed on the berries. They mainly feed on the berries, the green ones, the immature ones, and the matured ones. So when they feed, first of all, they remove the juice from the berries, and then the berries will drop, or the feeding hole, the punches that they put on the berries, create access to other secondary infections like bacteria, viruses, fungi, to also affect the berries. Another insect so this is the egg of the green sting bugs. The young ones and the old ones, the young ones and the adults are able to really feed on the berries. So it's a major pest. This insect that you see here is called Jesus bug. This one, probably people don't pay much attention to it. It looks like a tarnished plant bug. If you look at the picture here, if you look at it, you may think it's a tarnished plant bug, but this is a Jesus bug, and it is able to cause a lot of damage to growing the buds that are the flower buds. This was put in the greenhouse, and we found the Jesus bug on this, plants, and within a week, this is on the right, this is what we found. They had destroyed all the bloom, all the flower buds. So they are major pest, but for some reason, little is known about this insect. So we are going to try to investigate this further, look at how they really behave in the field and the damage that they cause and how we can control that. Then the insect that belong to Coleoptera, that is the beetles, we found several of them. Most of these insects were good insects, ladybugs, we found some of them. But the one that we found that was really, or the 2 that we found that were very important are the elderberry borer. These ones, if they lay their egg on the tree, the stem, and then the egg will develop into larva, and then eventually, when the larva is feeding, it kills the plant. And then we also have June beetles. Most of you know about June beetles. When they come en masse. Many of them come and they feed on the leaf, they defoliate the leaves. So several studies, a couple of years ago, my colleague, Dr. Pinera, did some work and said that, in elderberry, Japanese beetle can defoliate 6% of the plant. If they can really destroy that, 6% of the plant is destroyed, then you can see they will reduce photosynthesis, and then for that reason, the plant will not do well. Then this also is a major pest, aerophyte mites. Aerophyte mites are very, bad insect or bad mites, arthropods, which affect the plant. So what you see, the symptom is that you see the leaves, wrinkle. They show some wrinkle, sign, And when you see that, you have to make sure that you look at it under the microscope, and it shows that those are really infected or infested with, aerophyte mites. They reduce photosynthesis. They are very, very important, And then spotted wing Drosophila. These ones, they lay their egg in the berries, cause a lot of damage. So this one, we did this year, in our trap, we found several of them, and they are becoming a very, very serious pest of elderberry. So we are going to try to see how we can manage, these small flies. And then another one is the sawfly. This sawfly, what it does is that it lays egg. The larvae is so voracious. So this is the larvae which is showing with the arrow, the red arrow here. That's the larva that you see. And on the right, this is the defoliation. They can, in a very short time, they can defoliate your plant or the whole field, depending on their numbers. But one important thing is that once you are able to control them, you'll be able to the plant will be able to recover. But you don't want to get to this level before you control them. So we are also looking at ways to control this sawfly that you see here. And then the other insects, Cecropia moth, these ones, they are minor, they don't really cause serious damage. And these are the biggest moth in North America, this Cecropia moth. So you can also see them. And then this one is 10 caterpillar. When you go to your elderberry farm, you see some of these 10 caterpillars causing some damage. And one that I recently found that was really interesting is this red-headed sharpshooter. This red-headed sharpshooter, we found this in Mount Vernon, but the red-headed sharpshooter is a very serious pest of grapes. It causes a disease called Pierce disease, which is what you see in this grape. They are vectors of, this Pierce disease, and they transmit this bacteria into the grapes, and that is what you see. Once the grape is infected, there's nothing we can do. So I was wondering why we found this in the elderberry. So I'm going to pay more attention to this insect to see whether they are really causing any serious damage in the elderberry. So that is what I'm going to really pay attention to that one to see what they are doing. And then the good news is that we also found other good insects, many other good insects in the elderberry, and we are doing this to be able to know when you are controlling whether these small insects can also help us in our control. We identify several of these. So I'm going to show you the picture. So here, spine soldier bug was eating the sawfly larva that we saw. So the idea is that can we raise these ones and introduce them so that they can, keep those insects, for us. Yeah, we're going to look at that. And then the one in the middle, there's an assassin bug trying to capture or, eat, elderberry borer. It's also good for us. It's a good insect. We had other soldier beetles, which were, pollinating. In the middle one, there is a praying mantis, which is nicely blending with the environment. You can't even see it well, and then spiders. So there are good insects there that we can also enhance, so as we develop IPM, we want to enhance these insects so that they'll be able to help us in controlling the bad ones. Now, the one thing that we have to understand is that elderberry, if you see the berry, some of them can ripe early than others. And that brings in a lot of challenges when you are doing IPM, because if you have an insect like spotted wing Drosophila, they will be able to, lay their egg in the matured ones, and as them others mature, then they keep, laying their eggs. So it can keep this, insect in the field for a long time. So one of the things that the team is doing is to ensure that we breed varieties that will have uniform, maturity, so that we'll have this problem with, times that the berries mature differently. So that is what we are also trying to do. And also, because of the plant architecture, most of the berries, grow on top. So the insects are able to see the berries and then they fly into it and, you know, easily cause damage. This is not like some other crop that the fruits are hiding in the plant so that the insect will have to find, you know, walk around to find the fruit. But this one, it's in open, every, you know, insect will see it. And that also gives some, you know, some opportunity for the insect to really find the plant and eat the berries. So different times I've talked about that. So the take home message from this work is that we have found, at least we know what insects can be found in the elderberry plant or in elderberry farm, let me put it that way. The majority of them are pests, you know, for example, spotted wing Drosophila, stinkbugs, elderberry borers, and aphids. These are very, very, you know, key pests that we see. And then there were several other natural enemies that we found. We want to look at the interaction of these arthropods, whether they could be significant in terms of management. So in the coming years, we are going to try to understand these insects better, you know, develop IPM for each of them, and then make the elderberry production, you know, profitable. So I think I will end here. Thank you so much for your time. And if there are questions, I'll be willing to answer those questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Cam. That was great. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Clement about elderberry or any pests and disease or pest rather issues?
You can unmute your mic or ask in the chat.
Oh, Emily says, do you have beneficial insect recommendations for control of tarnished plant bug? They are a major issue for our flower crops.
Yeah, they are. No, they are. Currently, no. You only have to apply, you know, either insecticide or, yeah, that's what you can only do. Yeah, I don't have any recommendation for that, for biological control. Yeah.
Well, it's good you were honest about it. So, so that's important. Let's see, what else do we have going on? Any other questions?
Dr. Clement, this is Justin from
Yeah, Justin.
Can you talk a little bit about like SWD and you know, when you start seeing it and when you stop seeing it, I guess.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Yeah, so from our past, you know, trapping program, we start seeing them in May. This year, our traps started getting the insect in May. I think around May 8th or May 9th. So as soon as you see the plants, you know, the leaves coming up, when you put the trap, you see them. And the question is that the berries are not ready at the time. So why are they there? Where are they? Because they only come for the berries. So we are, you know, hypothesizing that probably the other, you know, host plants that are in the wild that they start with, and then the overwintering ones, you know, when they come out, they feed and then come. So we start seeing them in May, and they run until right now. We are still seeing some in our traps, but somewhere in July, we found that the numbers were down. I mean, probably because of the heat, you know, probably because of that. So I've not really, you know, closely look at the data, but I think that they are always there. And once the, you know, the berries start forming, maturing, then they start the egg laying. You know, insects are able to really hold their egg, keep their egg for some time. So I probably think that that is what they do. They hang around, feed on yeast and sugar in the farm, and then as the berries keep developing, then they go and lay their eggs there. So that is what we are seeing. So the peak probably will be in June. As at now, we can see that the peak will be June, and then we might have another peak in August when the weather is quite okay and not too hot. Yeah.
Okay. I did somebody mentioned tarnished plant bugs. At one point, I read something from Canadian organic growers, and they were using alfalfa as a trap crop for tarnished plant bug and strawberries. I don't know if that would be applicable to flowers, but I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that's really true. Thank you, Justin. Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Well, we're at 2:30 on the nose. We are so grateful for your attendance. Come back again on September 28th, and we'll be talking about animal husbandry with Dr. Salinas, Dr. Fisher, and who is our farmer speaker, Dr. Fisher?
It's Miss Kat Brookshire, who runs a farm where she has some chickens and goats and llamas and a handful of other kind of exotic species.
Oh, wait, that's going to be great. That's going to be great. Sorry, I just saw a question from Azula in the chat. Do you have any trap crop recommendations that can be companion planted to benefit elderberry?
Okay, yeah. Well, what I normally do is that in my field, I plant buckwheat and then sunflower in between the rows. And the idea is to, attract bees, attract pollinators, and also attract the good insects. So that is how I try to manage some of the pests. So probably they are not really used as trap crop, but of course, they also have some benefits in the landscape by bringing in good insects. Because as you know, buckwheat has a lot of showy flowers, and then sunflower to great in attracting bees. So that is what I do. I plant them in between the rows. So probably if you have a farmer who wants to do that, you can also try that.
Okay, sounds great. Well, I am going to end it right now and thank everyone. As our associate administrator, or our administrator rather for extension says, are all hearts and minds clear? Yep,
Yes.
We're good to go. Okay, thank you. We will see you on the 28th at 1 p.m. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ms. Miranda, for your work. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome so much. And thank you to Andrew Erb at the Media Center.
Yes.
All righty. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Miranda.
Mhm.